Where do I start? Where do I begin? How do I start?
So hello there, Unlimiteds. I'd like to welcome you to the third call in our Conversations Unlimited. And I'm excited to be sitting with Natasha McCreesh. Now, many of you will know Natasha as someone who I call my Chief Wow Officer. So before we start, first of all, hello, Natasha. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, David. Thank you for having me.
That's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. It's great to talk to you. And before we dive in, Natasha, what I'd like to do is share with everybody who you are to me. And as I say, we work together, and you work as my Chief Wow Officer, which is, I guess some people might call it PR or branding. And to me, it was that wow factor. It was what is it that people see in me that I don't see in myself, that I could expand, that I could bring into the world to create more impact and create a deeper connection. And that's why we started working together. And who you are to me is a couple of things. First of all, and very few people know this, that there are very few people in the world who I trust to coach me, who I feel energetically connected with to receive powerful coaching from. And Natasha is one of those. And Natasha, over the past 15 months or so, has given me some of the most powerful coaching I've received from anybody. Who else I see in Natasha is someone who is so authentic and so present with her journey. Natasha is someone who I'd call an emancipated navigator, someone who has their own compass and has chosen a way forward and chooses to follow that compass, no matter how hard the storms blow around, and to stay true to that journey. And so that's where I'd like to dive in with you today, Natasha, is to help others see into that journey, to see where you've been in the last 2 years. And I think that it was about 2 years ago that you left corporate life to choose something different. And can you share something about that?
Yeah. Thank you for that introduction, by the way. I'm so glad this is recorded. That might become one of my daily affirmations. That was brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, I did. I left 20 months ago now, actually. I started my business, Pip to Grow Strong, and I left my job. It took me about 3 years, I guess, to leave my job, or it took me 3 years from making the decision to leave to actually leave. And my corporate life was my world, definitely. I lived and breathed it for a long, long time, and so I think that's why it took me that long to make the transition once I'd made the decision. And when we met, I think it was about 6 months after I'd left, and I call that period, literally when I did leave, I call it my jelly brain phase. I literally just went to pieces, I think, for want of a better word, because I rebelled completely against all of the structure and the systems and the bureaucracy around being in corporate life, and just went into free fall, really, with, okay, I can do whatever I want whenever I want. And yeah, it was a real sort of strange transitional time for me, having been corporate all I've known since starting work, basically. So yeah.
So let's step back a little bit. You talk about making that decision and taking 3 years to take action. I'm really curious about that. So can you share what that decision was, and then what was the catalyst that finally allowed you to take action on that?
Yes. So the decision came about. The organisation that I worked for had literally during the recession, lots and lots of companies were restructuring, and the organisation that I'd worked for had gone through so much restructure after restructure after restructure, and I was so blessed in that every time that the company restructured, I somehow managed to get a better position for myself in terms of, I think I must be the only one of the very few people whose salary went up incredibly during the recession. And I kept getting these promotions, but what came along with that was obviously a slimmer and slimmer organisation. So it was great in reality that I was seemingly succeeding and getting this great position within the company, but at the same time it was against a backdrop of having to take more on, having to act in a position that I wasn't actually being rewarded for in reality. And this was going on for quite some time, and then there was a turning point, and I remember the moment exactly. There was another restructure, and we'd all been called to a hotel. There was about 40 or 50 of us in this big hotel function room, and the day before, my boss had literally left the business. No warning. He was there 1 second and he wasn't there the next second, and we were left with no communication. He was just gone. The MD had gone 3 weeks prior to that, and we were in this big function room, and we were basically told that we had to wait, and we would be called one by one into a room to find out, one, whether or not we had a job, and two, if we did have a job, the company was being separated into two companies, and we would be told which company we were going to work for. So I sat there for 2 hours and felt the sickest I've probably ever felt in my whole career. And I remember going into the toilets and having a good cry on the shoulders of one of my work colleagues saying, I don't want to lose my job, and just being so devastated and crushed at what was happening. And 2 hours later, I went into this room, and I remember I literally told him, I said, I'm really sorry, but there's a good chance that I could throw up, so you need to be quick. and they sort of looked at me really strangely, and they were like laughing then, and they said, well, no, it's all right, you've got a job, we want to keep you. And the side of the organisation, well, the company that I was going to go and work for, which I was told, you're going to go and work for this company. There was no choice in it. It was like, you're going to go and work for this company, was actually the one that I would have chosen. So again, you could say that the coin landed right side up for me. But that day, something literally died inside me, because I just realised that I was a pure number. I had no control over my destiny, and I'm learning a lot that we still don't have any control over our destiny, but there was a real sense of I had literally no control. And so in that moment, I knew that I wanted to leave. I wanted to do something for myself. And then the next 3 years were literally just figuring out what. It was a case of I didn't have a clue. I just didn't have a clue what I was going to do. So that was part of the reason why it took so long. It took me about 18 months to come across coaching and think, actually, yeah, coaching could be it. And then from there on in, it was just preparing myself to leave and do it. And the decision to leave and do it came quite easily, because I asked my boss if I could reduce to part-time hours, and I built up a business plan that showed that I could still do my job in half the time, and it would cost them less, and they could get a graduate in to pick up the slack on some of the smaller bits, and they refused. So that was when I handed my notice in and just went. And that was it. So I left with about a month's worth of money in the bank, and that was that. So, yes.
So a big leap of faith, and I'm curious. So at that point when you left, and you and dived into the jelly brain phase, as you call it, would you have called yourself a coach, or what would you have called yourself? What would you have described yourself as at that phase?
Oh, I definitely called myself a coach. Even though I was in Jelly Brain phase, I was out every single day telling people that I was a coach. So yeah, I was always that was never a question. In fact, I was a business coach. that's what I was telling everybody. Yeah. So there was no question in my mind. That's what I described myself as from day one. Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember one of our very first conversations. I think we first connected, and I want to share a couple of thoughts about what happens when we first connected. One was a great learning point for me, and which I'll come back to in a moment. But when we first connected, and we had one of our very first conversations, you'd been in this place for about 6 months, and we were talking about progressing as a coach. And I think it was literally the same day that we spoke. You had been to, I think, see someone in the council, and the person who was interviewing you for this potential role as a coach was impressing on you about how certified she was and how qualified she was, and you shared with me how that made you feel. I don't know if you remember that call, but I'm curious, at that time when you were out there every day, that it was hard to get clients. So what was that like?
Yeah. Thank you for reminding me of that.
I thought you might thank me for that. Yes.
Yeah, I'd left that one behind. No, yeah, I did. I felt really conscious being in that room. I remember that conversation clearly now that you've mentioned it, and thinking, oh my goodness, I'm here talking about coaching, and this woman has got qualifications coming out of her ears, and I did regularly feel like a bit of a fraud, calling myself a coach because of that. That definitely came up for me. I don't know that it actually impacted me on going out and talking to people and putting myself out there. I think I was struggling to get people to engage with me in a coaching context. I was having lots of conversations, like being able to go and sit in a room with a lady in the council and talk to her about coaching within the council. That was a success. If I think about it, that was a success to get to that point, albeit feeling a bit freaked out afterwards about it. The way that I approached it was really more to just constantly just see what I could do for other people and taking note of who I was speaking to and who they might want to be connected with and working like that. So that did take the edge off me feeling like a bit of a fraud. It still at that point didn't give me any paying clients by any means, but I was consistently able to support other people and understand what they were trying to achieve, and if I could create a connection between them and somebody else, or in any way offer them some advice based on my past experience or anything along those lines, then that's what I was doing, and that's what kept me going.
And I also remember that time, in that period, that a big lesson I got, that when we first connected, I think we had a great conversation, and it was about you coming to one of the Love Serve Create events. And as part of the outcome of that conversation, I added you to Coaching Unlimited, which at the time was a relatively small Facebook group, and I thought you might find it valuable. And yet I got some feedback later, which I think is a fantastic lesson in what we do as coaches that we think might be serving somebody might be perceived a little bit differently. So can you remember how you felt when I added you to the Facebook group without what you felt was, I don't think you felt that I had permission to do that. So tell me how you reacted to that, how you felt about
that. In nice language?
Well, we're all grown up here.
Yeah, I was literally like, who the F does he think he is? Connecting with me on Facebook. Because, Facebook for me at that time, and it's my relationship with Facebook is quite different now, I guess, to what it was then. But Facebook for me at that time was still very, very personal and still very much literally friends. And so, so to me, it was like, who does this guy think he is? He's trying to connect to me on Facebook, you know? It was really like that.
So that was a really big wake up moment for me, because I felt I was doing it from a place of connection and service, and we just don't know. We have to be really cautious about who we are connecting with and how we're connecting with them, because it could be received so many different ways. So,
Yeah.
so I really appreciate, because I think a lot of coaches out there, a lot of people in the limited, a lot of the limited, I know, are either in corporate life and they want to choose to leave, and how do they make that step, or they do leave and they go into the jelly brain phase or the struggle phase, and sometimes month after month after month, and the clients don't show up, and it's tough, and it's painful, and it takes a lot of faith. And of course, the one thing that we need as a coach, the one thing that is our most powerful resource, is our resourcefulness. And yet, when clients don't show up month after month after month, it's hard to keep going. So I guess what I'm really curious about now is, what was it allowed you to keep going and to continue being resourceful? And then what was the tipping point that shifted you from struggling to getting clients?
Yeah. Okay. So the first bit for me, it's non-negotiable in my mind. I did not want to get a job. That was it. I'd literally shut that door behind me mentally. I was absolutely going to have my own business. And actually, as I think about it, as you say it, as you asked me that question, for me, was it more important to be a coach, or was it more important to create my own income and have my own business? And I would say then and now, if I really am honest, it's more important for me to be able to be creating my own income. I really, first and foremost, I do not want to work for anybody else. That's it. That's crystal clear for me. So in terms of drive and not giving up and really keeping going, even when I was way behind with my mortgage and literally didn't know how we were going to eat and things like that on many occasions, that was what was my driving force. What was the turnaround for me really was there was two things. Your sex and cash stuff, so that really connected with me, definitely, was okay. And I think it was around, I'd had a conversation with my dad as well around a similar time, and it was along the same lines. And my dad was like, well, is it really bad if you did something to earn some money part-time that you really just didn't care about, but it was just some cash coming in that would enable you to do this? And then I was seeing the messages from Coaching Unlimited about sex and cash and starting to reconcile that in my mind. And I was almost at the point, and I'd signed up for different job things. I was almost at the point of, okay, I'll get a part-time job and just have some cash coming in that will make me able to focus on developing the business without feeling the pressure and all of that. But I did die a little inside. It did make me feel like, no, it just wasn't what I wanted to do. But weirdly, at the same time, then what came about was some fruit was starting to bear from all of that slog and legwork of sharing and giving and connecting and being with people and listening to them and understanding what they wanted, and all of that started to bear fruit, because in like a really short space of time, and I remember when it was around the Christmas time, I suddenly had like 2 or 3 people coming to me and saying, oh, I've got this new thing and I really want to get it out there and I want people to hear about it. And I heard that you do this sort of thing. I was like, I'd never really told anybody that I did this sort of thing, so I don't know where it came from. And can I work with you? So suddenly in January, I had these 3 clients start, and it was all about visibility and all about creating a profile for them and getting them heard. And that saved me. That literally saved me from having to get a job. And I was like, yeah, this is my cash. This is it. This is my cash. And that was the turning point for me. That was where things started to change.
And it's interesting that you call that your cash business. So, by the way, first of all, for those of you listening who have no idea about this sex and cash idea, I just want to jump in and take a 90 seconds or a 2-minute time out to talk about that.
Yeah.
It's actually, there was an advertising executive called Hugh McLeod who had a kind of a Jerry Maguire moment. He wrote a manifesto about advertising. And if you go and check out his material, go and Google Hugh McLeod, he has some brilliantly lateral views of the world. And his business now is producing graphics, very, very simple ideas for doing huge walls or backdrops or murals for corporate events and stuff. And they're just so funny, insightful, poignant, and challenging. But as part of his manifesto, one of the seeds of that was this idea of sex and cash, which is big ad agencies, the global ad agencies, they all want to show off their marquee brands. They all want to show off that they work with Apple or Google or Mercedes or Porsche or IBM or whoever it is, the big marquee brands. Procter & Gamble probably spends more money on advertising than anybody else in the world. And what he said is this. He said, in an ad agency, the reality is this. The marquee brands look great on the outside of the building. They attract the best talent. Everybody who's in creative, in sales, in media, whatever, they want to work on that account because it looks fantastic on the CV. I worked on the Apple account. But the reality is, those big brands know that they've got you at the end of their beck and call. That whenever they want something, they can get the best people to get the best results in the shortest amount of time. And the agency doesn't really make any money out of them. They're not really where the money comes from. The money really comes from doing Debbie's discount carpets and Billy's bathtubs. That's when they sell media space at huge premiums. They do cheap ads that you see in the back of the free sheets or the back of the Sunday papers that they charge huge margins for because they're dead easy to produce. No one wants to work on those, but they're high margin business. That's the cash work. And so an ad agency kind of splits its life into sex work and cash work. But what happens if we can do that for ourselves? That we do sexy stuff and we do cash stuff. I mean, Angelina Jolie is a great example of that. She has a sexy Hollywood career, but for her, that's actually her cash work. Making $10 million a year in Hollywood allows her to be a UN ambassador, allows her to do her work in Africa and build orphanages and hospitals and really make her mark in the world. That's her sex work. So it's that differentiation between actually sometimes we just need to make money and sometimes we're living our dream. Sometimes both are the same, and that's kind of the nirvana. And actually I come back to Natasha, I come back to what you're saying, which is, wouldn't it be true to say that actually standing on your own 2 feet, making your own money, using your personal skills to help others make a greater impact in the world, it sounds like pretty sexy cash work, even though you call it cash work. Would that be true?
Oh, it's really true. And actually going back to when I said I wanted to leave my job and the decision, like my criteria of what I wanted to do was it has to be something that I can take anywhere in the world, and it has to be something that I enjoy. Like they were my main two, and I still stand by that now. And even those 2 or 3 people, when they first approached me, I was just like, oh, would I enjoy it? Would I enjoy working with these people? Do I believe in what they do? And I'm really conscious of that every single day, that actually my biggest goal is am I doing what I enjoy? Do I enjoy what I'm doing? And if I'm not enjoying it, why aren't I enjoying it? And how can I correct that? That's definitely. So it does make my cash work really sexy as well. I do love that double whammy. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're kind of 8 or 9 months into into your independence. The work is starting to come in, and you're starting to get a bit here and a bit there, and in fact, you and I started working together. And
Yeah.
so I'm really curious, how has the last 12 months evolved for you? What have you, now that you created that platform that you could build from, what did that enable you to do differently? And then how did that evolve to where you are today?
Yeah. So building the cash platform definitely gave me breathing space. So I was nowhere near like comfortable, but you're still watching what's going on every single month, obviously. But it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to have to get a job. I'm going to have to get a job. I wasn't that thought process wasn't there. It's more about, okay, so how could I really enjoy this, or how could I do more of that, or who can I speak to today? It also gave me opportunities to dig into some of the other stuff that I wanted to do. So mentoring or working with young women, which is something that, I'm really, really passionate about. And having that cash work enabled me to do that. And since September last year, I've been mentoring every Thursday afternoon with groups of young girls around raising aspirations. So that was one thing that has evolved over the last 12 months, is that by having that cash work, I've been able to devote blocks of time to doing stuff that I really, really care about. So that was one thing, and seeing what that feels like and how can I evolve that into income generating stuff by doing different things. So I became trustee of a charity, which has built my skills and enabled me to understand that sector, and charities or organisations, I think, really could benefit from support in lots of different ways. So I've enjoyed being able to do that. So the cash work has given me, it gave me those options to really think about what else do I want to do and experiment and try stuff out. What has evolved with the income coming in as well is really by sticking to the, do I enjoy this? Who is it that I'm working with, and why am I working with them, and how can I get more people like this? By coming from a place of what do I enjoy, it's actually enabled me to almost start to shape the cash work into how can I become more of a coach within that. So, okay, I'm working with these people on a consultancy basis, and I'm giving them advice, and in some instances I'm doing things like I'm writing copy, or I'm creating press releases and all those kinds of things, and I enjoy that work. But what the last 12 months has shown me is, okay, well, what do I really enjoy? Well, I really get energized by doing this part of it. So some of the conversations that you and I have, David, that, they're really energizing, where we're exploring what does a personal brand really mean? How do I show up? How do I really be who I am in the world? And that's something that I've had the ability through the cash work to play around with and do more and more of. And so everything's just an experiment, and I'm just playing with it all every day, I guess. So I'm not really sure what changed, other than sticking to that principle of what do I enjoy and doing more of that, keeping to that and doing more of that. And right now I'm kind of in this scenario where I could very easily have 100% of my work be the sex stuff. So I could literally wake up every morning and think, there's not a bit of this that's cash. This is actually now all sex, and that would be amazing. And I'm working my way around this dilemma of how much coaching. One thing I learned from the sex and cash is that I can be a coach within what I do. And this came up in the Be the Coach Today program as well, by a couple of people saying, I love coaching, but do I want a coaching business? And I love coaching, and I would love a 100% coaching business, but I'm just working through what's showing up for me now in terms of how much of my income do I want to generate from 100% pure coaching versus the doing the work for. So I don't know, that kind of felt like that was a really long-winded way around of coming to it, but that's where I'm at right now.
And I think that takes me to the final thought I wanted to bring to this conversation, which is, it's something you and I talked about recently, and it was something that I think is almost nirvana for a coach or someone in this world of working for ourselves, where we're actually doing a mix of coaching and consulting and mentoring and training. Because that's what I do. I mean, I do a mix of all those things. I'm a coach, and I do those other things too. It's just part of who I am. I have 30 odd years of corporate experience. Of course, it comes into conversations with entrepreneurs because I can bring something to bear they have no experience of, and I think it's a natural part of adding value. So when I think about something you said, that you've moved into this new phase of selecting, that actually, 15 months ago, it was a struggle to get anybody to pay you. And now, here you are 15 months later, you're now picking and choosing who you want to work with and why. So, as you see this year unfolding, what is going to be your driver in terms of how you select?
Good question. It very much will come down to, I 100% have to believe in what that person or organisation is doing. It has to be something that I would literally buy myself or recommend wholeheartedly without question. So that's number one. Number two is this shift from, okay, I can be a mix of coach, consultant, mentor, trainer, and feel good about that. Feel great about creating all of my income from that mix. For me specifically, then it's about filtering those potential clients to make sure that they've got the other infrastructure around them. So if I'm working with somebody on branding and personal branding and visibility and connecting strategies, that I want to filter now to know that the people that I'm working with have the structure around them to implement stuff. So I would say that one of the biggest warning bells that's been going off in my mind recently is getting sucked into the doing rather than enabling them to do and be. So that's the sort of real specific to me filter for the coming 12 months, I would say.
Well, thank you so much for sharing today. I really appreciate you, as I expected, to be true to who you are. And the underlying theme that I sense in all of your journey is you've had your compass and you followed it. You followed it for 9 months when it was hard to get the clients. You followed it when you started to get clients and to use it to express more of being you. And I sense that in the year ahead that your selection will be done the same way. The last 30 seconds, what's one thing that you've learned on your journey in the last 20 months that you would share with a new coach or a struggling coach or someone who's finding their way with their first clients? What's the one tip that you would share?
that it's okay to, for me, it was like, where I am now is where I am now, and that's all right. And anyone around me can know where I am now, and that's all right. I think that's what's dawning on me in terms of what's got me through and what keeps getting me through is that it's all okay, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
That is absolutely brilliant, Natasha. I really appreciate your time today. And I'm sure people would love to get in touch with you or connect with you. What's the best way that they can connect with you?
Oh, gosh. Connect with me on Facebook. Our community is in Facebook, so by all means, connect with me on Facebook. That's a great place to start. That's it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Unlimited, I hope you found that valuable. I've so enjoyed connecting with Natasha yet again. And we have some exciting calls coming up. We have a BBC journalist coming up. We have the Group HR Director of one of the world's largest banks coming up in the next couple of weeks. So please check us out and listen in for more Conversations Unlimited. Have a great day. Bye for now. And we're out. And we're done.